What's up, what's up, what's up? We are here. We are here. And I'm super excited. And I know it's early. I know it's early. I know it's early. Hi, Vegan Soulicious. VeganPopEats. Welcome. Hi everyone. I know it's early, y'all, but I thank y'all for coming. Child. You got to do it for the culture. Do it for the culture. Yes, indeed. How is everyone doing this morning? Thank y'all so much for coming on. Thank y'all so much. You know I like to come on a few minutes early. The reason why it's so early is that he recently moved to Prague. So he is in Prague and we had to get it on a time that would make sense. He is a dope individual. I was researching vegans that you should watch and to know, and his name popped up, and I thought that he would be an excellent start for Black History Month. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Black History Month, y'all. It's Black History Month. Thank you to everyone who is coming on. If you haven't had the opportunity to get my book, if you're ever coming to New York, my guide would be exceptional for you to be able to maneuver your way through our vegan paradise here in New York City. So if you get an opportunity to do it, I'm going to keep it on sale for the month of Black History. Right now it's $20. The link is in the bio. I would appreciate that. Hi. Yes, I would appreciate that. And today we're talking of all things Black. We're talking all things race. We're talking about veganism. We're talking about Specism. I know I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but he is the, I guess, the expert on all things. We're going to talk about, racism in the veganism world, all those good things. And I know he has a lot to share. I'm super excited because I am... Why are you... Okay, someone tried request to be in the video, but no. But yes, so we're going to have a conversation about that. I'm super excited about it. Hi, Marquise, how are you? And I always come on a little bit earlier. So if anyone has any questions about what I do, what this is about, how lit it is over here on the dope side, on the dope on the green side, you just let me know. I like to get to know the community and the people who are coming on because, I like to feel connected. I like to feel connected. So that's what we do when we come on 10 minutes. And it's also to see, if the lighting is good and things of that nature. So yes, that's what it is. That is what it is. So yes. So how's everyone doing today? Can you hear me properly? What's good? What's good? Yes, indeed. Thank you for coming on. I see people are starting to come on. I'm so thankful. Yes, this should be a great talk. Hi, good morning. Good morning. This should be a great talk. So yeah, and I'm always a student when it comes to certain discussions because, if you don't know, you don't grow. If you don't know, you don't grow. Okay, I'm back. Because I had to make sure that we wouldn't be getting interrupted and stuff like that. Hi, Sherry. How are you? Good morning. Thank you so much for coming on. When is the merchandise coming? I always launch in June. June 14th is always a date that I launch things because it's my birthday. It's the birth of VeganPopEats. I always launch on that. So I'll be launching these t-shirts again. And I'll be also launching It's Dope over here on the green side. I say it so much. People want the t-shirts. So I will be getting that together. I have to get a graphic artist who can, do it. Yes, June 14th. That'll be the date. Oh, and I'm also throwing an event in April, y'all. So for y'all that are here in New York, when I drop that Eventbrite, I need y'all to show up. It's going to be at Earthen NYC. It's a vegan wine bar, and it's a vegan social for the vegan curious, the vegan adjacent, because I really just want to get to know the community, and I also want people to know how we get down. We have a good time when we get together and we talk about things other than being vegan, but that is a focal point. It's going to be a small panel there, and I'm giving out goodie bags, y'all, and the goodie bags are going to be lit. We're also going to have mocktails there for those of you who do not drink. I've gotten 2 mocktail sponsors, so there'll be some cute signature drinks made, and there's also wines, and it's also going to be food passing. So whenever I drop that link, if you're here in New York, please come and get it popping, because, when this is a success, that means there'll be so much. Yes, Devin, you'll be able to come whenever I drop the link. I'll drop the link for tickets and things of that. Yes. Oh my God. We'll have to talk vegan solicious. But yes, there'll be pass arounds and things. Vash is such it's Yash. I shouldn't have said Vash. It's Yash. He's such a dope individual. The Earthen Bar is such a cute space. The food is amazing there as well. But yeah, I really wanted to do an event that will, represent who I am and how I, like to get down. There will be a dress code and it will be a color code, because I want to show y'all that, we live life in abundance and we don't play. We don't play. So yeah, so it's going to be a good time. It's going to be in April, right at the beginning of spring. And I will keep y'all posted. But yes, and it's called the pop-up. The pop-up. So that's some of the things that we have coming. And yeah, and around April, May, and stuff like that. My Venmo until I get badges. Oh, I'll do my Cash App, I guess. Cash App. Oh. Vegan Pop Eats. VeganPopEats. Post. I'll pin that. Okay. So every time I come on here, people are always asking me to put up my Cash App or something. And I really appreciate those of you who want to donate and things of that nature. I found out that I can't get badges until I reach 10,000 followers. So I'm working hard to get that done. I really appreciate those who want to contribute. My Cash App is pinned. Is by no means that you have to. There's Christopher. There's by no means that you have to. It is appreciated, but every time I come on here, people are always asking me how they can donate and how they can support. So I will start doing that, and that's that. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. So, okay. Christian, you have to request to come in so I can request you. But yes, thank you for all the support. Thank you for all of you who always tell me to put my Cash App up. Thank you to everyone who is, yes, you just have to request in so I can request you in. Yes. Did you go through? Did it do? Accept. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
How are you?
Excellent. Let me just make sure. Oh my God, I look very, very shiny right here. I apologize for that. Is the audio okay?
Yes, the audio is amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You got me up early, Christopher.
I know. My apologies. My apologies.
With you moving to Prague.
Yes.
Giving.
Yes. Yeah. I'm in the Czech Republic, so I'm 6 hours ahead of you, East Coast time. Where are you?
I'm in New York.
She's in New York. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm in New York. What made you move to Prague?
A lot of things. I had actually been contemplating an international move for ages.
Yes.
And I pulled the plug on that. Like, I almost said I pulled the trigger, but I don't like that expression. I pulled the plug on that in like 2016. And I love it here. I miss home. I miss home a lot.
But nothing like being overseas. I lived half my life in Germany, and when I say I'm already thinking about my exit plan in the next 5 to 10.
I actually have, I've done webinars with people trying to help them through their exit plan, because a lot of people think that it is incredibly difficult to move overseas, and and depending on what your situation is, it can be, but it's not as impossible as we generally think of it, because usually when we're talking about or thinking about immigration, we're thinking about it from the perspective of people coming into the United States.
Right.
And the United States makes it ridiculously, prohibitively difficult to come into the country. Whereas a lot of places in the world, the same thing isn't necessarily true. So yeah, we could have a whole conversation about that. And I do love helping people think about what their dream destinations are, and and helping them work through that. And also letting people know, or helping them work through the emotional weights that we put on ourselves when we are considering these things, what we're leaving behind, who we're leaving behind, whether or not it's ethical to do so, where should they live, where it feels ethical. And I always tell people, especially Black people, that you know what, we belong everywhere on this planet.
Yes, we do.
We are everywhere.
My exit plan is to Africa. I'm going to Africa.
That is similar to my mother's plan. She wants to she would love to live in Senegal.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so I would love to make that happen for her. So yeah, we talk about this a lot.
All these people are coming in for you, and I just want to say thank you so much, because I've been doing my research, but I'm just so excited to hear your perspective on race, veganism, Specism. You made me learn a new word.
I'm glad. I'm so happy to walk on that journey with you. That's really exciting for me.
Well, I'm Angela Yvonne, and I am the host of VeganPopEats Live and VeganPopEats. We are changing the perception of veganism through conversation, cuisine, and conscious living. And we have the one and only Christopher Sebastian. And when I started to research you, I forgot that I had saw the Invisible Vegan, and you were on there. And I remember it was right when I was getting started doing VeganPopEats, and I was like, oh, I would love to have him on my show, because I've interviewed Jessica.
Jasmine, she is amazing.
Sorry.
She's she actually came here to film my portion of the documentary with me. It was absolutely incredible. She is a phenomenal filmmaker.
Yes.
And so many people have discovered me through that. And so I am so grateful to her for including me in her documentary and letting me be a part of her story, because I consider that to be an honor and a privilege. She didn't have to do that. And she was she's so incredibly gracious.
Yes.
And a very, very humble woman. And absolutely, she's gorgeous inside and out.
Yes. She was one of my very first interviews, and that was before I even had anything to talk about. I was just reaching out to people y'all want to talk about veganism? Y'all want to talk about it? Y'all want to talk about it? And she was one of the ones who was so graciously to come on and spread the word about the Invisible Vegan. But today it's all about you, and we're going to get into this. I always like to start the conversation, because I don't like to say interviews, about how did your journey start? Why did you become a vegan? Why is it important for you?
This conversation, I've told it so many times before. I usually try to refer people to another interview or conversation that I've had with people so that I don't have to recount it again. But I will run through this very, very briefly because, of course, like not everybody watches the same material, not everybody reads the same things, and so, like, you know, what's 100 times for me is the first time for everyone else. So yeah, like really quickly, like I had gone vegan in 2004, and it was like a complete accident. I wasn't looking for veganism, and veganism found me. I was returning from a work trip, and I was coming from Las Vegas, back home to Philadelphia at the time. And I had a layover in a Phoenix airport, and I saw a book called Skinny Bitch. And I thought that the title was a riot. And I was like, you know, and just as I was going through the airport looking for something to read on my flight, that book, like, you know, it stood out to me because I was just thinking like, oh my God, like, you know, this trip, like, you know, I put on a couple of pounds. Right. So like, this looks like a diet book. And it seemed like it would be, but then like, you know, I think like by the third or fourth chapter, it veered into like, you know, hardcore, like animal ethics. And like, you know, and that was like, you know, that is like that I hadn't been confronted with before. And so like, I often tell people that by the time the plane landed, I was vegan. And it was easy for me because the refrigerator was already cleaned out before I left. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm shopping now. And so, like, you know, putting together things like ramen noodles and breakfast cereal, because that was the only things that I could think of at the time. And like, you know, you don't start off knowing like what to eat and how bountiful like the world of food is outside of the same 3 or 4 pieces of meat and cheese and like dairy and eggs that we're all used to. And like I like had, it was years later before like I actually had like gone on to like, you know, to do any type of scholarship around it. Because I just simply didn't think about it. I was just being my own little private vegan all by myself and living my life. And like, you know, when I discovered like people like Breeze Harper and Carol Adams, and like I picked up the sexual politics of meat around like 2013. And like that absolutely shook me all over again because I didn't know about ecofeminism and what it was and how important it was. And so like her book led me to another book and another book and another book. And that's how I discovered like Breeze and all of the people that I really look up to. And I learned about like everything from food injustice to prison abolition to like, you know, to animal exploitation along the way because these things were foreign to me. And like, I like to tell people that like, you know, like well, I don't like to tell people, but I often tell people that I was embarrassed that like Skinny Bitch was my introduction to veganism.
I read the book.
You read the book, and like in retrospect, like, you know, like more than 10 years on, I'm looking back at that and it's like a little cringe. And it's like, oh, like, you know, that was like, you know, that like there's so much health shaming and fat phobia and like, you know, and white femininity that's tied into that like, you know, that I'm sort of embarrassed about it. But like I actually got to meet Carol Adams in like 2016 at a conference. And that was our first introduction. Now we're great friends, or at least I think so. Carol, if you're watching, I hope we're friends. But, you know, like she is, again, such a gracious person. And she literally took me by the hand. She put her hand on my arm when, like, you know, when we were having that conversation. And I said, Carol, like, you know what? I love the sexual politics of meat. Like the first book that I read on veganism was Skinny Bitch. And I'm so embarrassed about that. And she said to me, and look at where you are now.
Yes.
Look at who you are. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, like, look at what you've done since then. It doesn't matter what your point of origin is. It just matters who you are and who you're trying to be in the moment. And that was really healing. Like, you know, that was really like, that was a monumental moment because like, I wasn't prepared to give myself that grace. Like, you know, and like, you know, but always talking that talk to other people. And that was just, and she just like, she freed me up from a lot of stuff right there. And I'm really grateful for that. I am. And so like, so yeah, like, you know, from that moment on, I read like, The Dreaded Comparison by Marjorie Spiegel. Like, I think that like, there's just like, there are so many books. And if you go to my website, I actually have a resources section where people can look at like, you know, a lot of my readings. And a lot of them are actually not directly about animal liberation or veganism. A lot of what I draw on is like political science, poli-sci, like, you know, social theory and like, you know, and looking at like, you know, media theory, because that's the world that I live in as like a journalist, as a writer, as like, you know, as a lecturer. And so like, you know, trying to like not make my world about veganism, but looking into the ways in which like, you know, veganism and animal liberation fits into my life and how I can make these things interact with each other. And that was really important to me. And like, you know, and I have had an amazing time since then.
So when you look up Christopher Sebastian, the words that come to mind: veganism, race, queer, and speciesism. Why are those the most important words to you? And why have you made it your mission for people to really take a grasp to speciesism? Because that's, you know, I'm not an English major. I'm a communication major, but I'm not an English major. And last night when I was looking up the word, it was like a light bulb, because you can use that word for so many things.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I was shocked, because I was just like, you know, I can see where speciesism and racism is like the exact same thing, except removing the players. Am I viewing that wrong?
I don't think that you're viewing it wrong. Like, I think that, like, you know, when you look at it, like, it's really about the psychology of oppression, and, like, you know, and what drives people, like how we create these in groups and out groups, and like, you know, how those boundaries are like erected, and, like, you know, the more strict the boundary, like, you know, and I've read, like, Joseph Dodds is like a psychotherapist, and he's written extensively about these things. Like, you know, he said, like, the more strict the boundary is that we draw between in groups and out groups, the more violently that boundary has to be enforced. And so when we look at, like, you know, the boundaries that we've drawn between male and female, which are very binary constructions, like between black and white, and, like, you know, and all of the, like, people of color that exist on the spectrum, and the boundary that we have, like, that we've erected between species, it, like, you know, so much of that informs our relationships with one another, living in a white supremacist or white dominated construction.
Right.
Because, like, you know, when we're talking about who has access to who is truly human, like, you know, that's been dominated by primarily white men in the Western world throughout most of modern history. And, like, you know, and, like, not having access to what is considered, I'm sorry, I froze up there for a moment. You can't rely on my internet to happen. But yeah, like, not having access to what is considered, like, inherently human has informed how I think about animals in many ways. And looking for solidarity with, like, those who have less in this hierarchy that we're living in, and considering how violently that, like, the racial boundary has been enforced between, like, you know, between different races, and all, like, predicated on white supremacy. And so, yeah, like, when you talk about these things, I think that they're deeply related, because, like, Black people throughout modern history have been animalized. And, like, you know, and it's like, and it's a silly designation to begin with, because, once again, biologically, we're all animals.
Yeah.
And so for, like, you know, for like, and I look at the Enlightenment period as a moment in, like, you know, in history where this really took off, when, like, for like white humans to actually, like, you know, to separate and, like, segregate themselves off from the rest of the animal kingdom, and consider themselves separate from, and in many ways superior to, the rest of the animals that we share this planet with. Like, you know, that for me, like, you know, that goes hand in hand with, like, you know, how we think about race, and, like, you know, and how, like, you know, and how my rejection of, like, animal violence is, like, an extension of, like, you know, how I want us to treat each other. And so it's just, for me, modeling the type of behavior that I would like to see out in the world, and encouraging other people to do the same.
And then you throw veganism in it. And veganism, the discussion around that has always been, it's been predominantly a white person's type of lifestyle. Like, even I remember when I started crossing over, people were just like, ma'am. But being healthy and living good should not have a color to it.
Right.
And with the and another thing that always separates us, as in deciding if we're going to be healthy or not, is that we're deciding the cost. And it's being, you know, saying that, oh, you know, if I'm rich and I'm this and I'm this, I deserve to eat good, or I deserve to have those things. And it's evident that, you know, society thinks that, because if you look at some of our neighborhoods and with the way that they are strategically and intentionally placed things that are not good for us. So what are your thoughts about that?
Oh boy, I have a lot of thoughts. I'm trying to backtrack to make sure that I can cover everything. Like in my head, the first thing that I want to I want to be clear about for people that are joining and people that are listening to our conversation is that for me, veganism is so much more than a diet. And I want to be mindful about not reducing veganism to just what I eat and the way that I eat and being healthy. Because looking at the ideological roots of veganism, it is part of a much larger political movement. And and I understand that it is mostly dietary for a lot of people out there, because not everyone defines veganism the same way. For me, this is how I look at and I define veganism. Now that said, talking about the dietary aspect, which is the primary way that most of us interact with animals every day, dead, chopped up into little pieces and on a plate. Looking at diet, that's so important, because veganism cannot be divorced from. It's intrinsically linked to food culture, food insecurity, and and access to food. And yeah, the way that we have geographically, culturally, and socially been separated off, throughout the United States and indeed throughout the world, has a direct impact on how we view other animals and how we view our food choices. And the fact that so many people look at a plant-based lifestyle as something that's inaccessible to them, and something that is mostly accessible to white people, is a reflection of the choices that the movement has made throughout the past 30, 40, 50 years, in order to to preserve, again, white dominance. And the way that we look at meat in particular, and value it, that that hyper valorization of meat and meat products and dairy products is something that that is is a sign of our status, or a sign of who we are as people, or what type of social currency we hold. That's delivered to us, a lot of it through white culture as well. And likewise, the inaccessibility of veganism is presented to us through a very racialized lens too, because when people do think of quote vegan food, they're not thinking about the produce that that exists in most grocery stores. They're thinking about luxury products meat replacements, or alt protein as it's often called, or non-dairy cheeses, or things that cost a lot of money. And so these are not they may have nothing to do. Oftentimes they have nothing to do with our culturally relevant and culturally important foods. And so we view it as something that is foreign to us, that we don't have access to, and that we largely have no interest in. And that's really disappointing to me, because when you look at the history of social justice and civil rights in the United States in particular, which both of us are from, just again trying to be mindful of everybody who's watching and who may join us later on, when we look at that, there is so much tied into into our relationship with other animals. Right. For example, I look at I recently just done a TEDx talk in Vienna, where I was talking about these things. Cicely Tyson she had said in what became her last interview before she died at 96, that when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, when she saw that, she was so shocked that she became a vegetarian. Dick Gregory actually talked about from his veganism springing from his spirituality, and saying that thou shalt not kill. He applies that to everyone, irrespective of species. Angela Davis has talked about this.
I was named after her.
Miss Angela Yvonne.
Yes.
Angela Yvonne Davis herself.
Yes.
She actually has talked about this, and how how we are not mindful of the food that we consume in a capitalist society, and how it conceals a lot of violence around us. And so many civil rights leaders and people who engage with racial justice, a lot of them actually come to, myself included, come to veganism, or come to understand veganism as a response to racial trauma that we've experienced, because we see how, like, like how treating others who are not like ourselves, like, like what that violence looks like. Oh no, I'm sorry. Like, again, I should probably try to ditch my internet connection because it is unkind to us today. I apologize.
It's okay. No worries.
But
It's still
yeah.
going up and you're still giving information.
Like I was saying that, like, like so many people who are engaged in racial justice, like come to veganism or come to animal liberation through a racial justice lens because of their experiences of racial trauma.
Right.
And like, and not wanting to visit that type of violence on others, again, irrespective of species. And like, what's really interesting to me to observe is the other side of that. People, like, because like the fact that when we are confronted with our participation in drama against other species, a lot of us actually double down on it. And like, and we do that in large part because that is a trauma response too. Like in many cases, like people are saying, like, what, I want access to the same thing that, like, quote, white people have on an unconscious level. And right. So like, they see like veganism as, again, reducing it to a diet, like, as something that is part of like orthorexia, or something that is an extension of like disordered eating, or like, something that is like, that is colonial in nature because it is, quote, instructive on how we should be, or the proper way to be. Like, an extension of purity culture and all of that. And so bringing all of this other baggage to animal liberation, and what I look at as like, as part of my racial justice liberation framework as well. So like, it's disappointing to me that, like, you have these two really, like, valid perspectives, like, because like, if you're looking at this as a trauma response, then like, you can't invalidate someone's trauma. You can only like work with them and hope that like they come to the same conclusion that you do. Right. And that, like, like, I do not want to visit this, like, I want to break the cycle of violence, and I do not want to visit this type of violence on other persons, especially because whenever we do engage in that, it always comes back on us. Look at the state of the planet that we're living on right now, and the role that animal agriculture plays in that. Yeah. Look at, like, look at the fact that, like, we're experiencing not one, but now it looks like we've got like another avian flu virus that is like breathing down our necks right now. Look at the state of our health, our collective health, again, because of our very broken relationship to other animals. And so, like, and so, like, I say the same thing to other Black and brown people when I'm talking to them, that I say to white people when I'm, like, when I'm talking about racial justice. Everything that we do has consequences. And when we visit violence upon those other groups that are more minoritized and marginalized than us, we are going to experience those consequences ourselves. Just like when white people say, okay, whatever happens to Black people, that's Black people's business, and I'm not in it. And so, like, that's not going to happen to me. It absolutely will. It will. Because, like, when the police get through, like, beating our asses in the street, like, that violence always comes home. Malcolm X talked about the chickens that come home to roost. Right. These chickens are coming home to roost. And we see that when we look around the United States, and we see that every institution in U.S. society is failing and crumbling before our very eyes. It is because you allow these things to happen to Black and brown people. And, like, not just around the world, but like right here in your own backyard too. And now that violence is being visited upon you, and now your mouth is poked out and you don't know why. And again, I say this to our own people. I'm like, listen, we didn't create this system. Like, we, like, I wish that it didn't exist this way, but we are a part of the system. We have to make very active decisions about what we want to do and our level of participation in this violent system. Yes, I know, like, like, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. I've heard it all before. But this is something, like, this is an active choice that we can make multiple times a day. Right. And, like, and again, model the behavior that we want to see in the rest of the world. And this is for me modeling that. Like, like, I don't want to be a part of any more pandemics. Please, I've had enough pandemics for several lifetimes. I don't want to be a part of, like, of the climate emergency. I can minimize that as best I can. Like, and like, I can't stop everyone from driving a car. Right. Like, I can't stop flying. I need to do it sometimes. This is something that is in my control, and it's constantly in my control. Every morning when I wake up, I get to do it all over again. I can make that decision. I am not going to eat other animals that I share this planet with. And, like, and I don't care if my tiny little contribution makes a difference or not. That's something that I have chosen for me, for my own personal integrity. This is what I have chosen to do, and I sleep better at night. And, like, you know what? If the world falls apart anyway, the world falls apart anyway. This is again about me and my own integrity, about collaborating in that violence.
And you said that so eloquently. And what really sticks out with all the things you said, there's so many things, is that I'm also a person who believes that karma is real. There's a consequence to every action, and you don't never see what the consequence is going to be, but it's always, in my opinion, 3 times worse than what you've ever done. And when I think about veganism, and I think about us, the Black and brown people, you know, other people of color, however you want to fall under it, and we can go back and forth with who's what and what. I feel that they give us the most aggressive, I don't want to do it. I don't need to do it. And I'm just like, you know, our ancestors was not eating meat like that. And we didn't do it until we were colonizing, because we didn't know, and we didn't get a grasp of where we were. But soon as we got a grasp, we were making gardens on the side to supplement, you know, the things that we weren't getting. We were, you know, we had to adjust to the environments and things of that nature. And I always say that, you know, I feel like veganism is the missing key for the Black and brown people, because when you start eating this way, and you're right, it's not just about a diet, but when you start eating this way, you get clarity. And when you get clarity, you're able to operate at your highest frequency.
I've absolutely been given clarity, like in the sense that, like, you know, being forced to interrogate so frequently, like very early on, what I'm eating and, like, you know, where my food is coming from. That absolutely gave me clarity, and it gave me, like, you know, it gave me the courage of conviction to actually question other things. And so I'm like, you know, you can't unsee that. And that's why I say that, like, you know, like that level of clarity, like, you know, and that level of, like, you know, of doing that self-work, if you will. Like, you know, that really, that's why, like, you know, like, I can't divorce this from, like, you know, from things like prison abolition, from food injustice and food insecurity, from, like, you know, from queerness, like, you know, and the struggles against white supremacy, because, like, you know, like, that interrogation leads you down an absolute rabbit hole. I don't know, can we say rabbit hole? Maybe. I think that's a phrase that's allowed, like, for vegans, but it does. It leads you down a little rabbit hole where, like, you know, you do realize that all of these things are interconnected. And Audre Lorde said herself that there's no such thing as a single issue struggle, because we don't live single issue lives. And, like, you know, I find that to be true. And so once again, we're looking at how Black feminism, like, you know, informs my veganism, and why so much of the, like, you know, the readings that I do and the liberation work that, like, that I like to be involved in, like, you know, is centered on things outside of the vegan movement. Plus, my experiences of the vegan movement itself have not been, like, you know, like, stellar. And we could talk about that, like, you know, but
What did you say, Christopher?
I think that, like, you know, in my experiences, I can't speak for anyone else, but, like, you know, in my, and every Black person, like Breeze especially, if she ever watches this, she'll just roll her eyes.
I'm interviewing her, I think, in March.
What's that?
I'm interviewing her, I think, in March.
Absolutely, that will be outstanding. But yeah, like, so many Black people are like, oh, you're just finding out what we knew the whole time. And it's like, you know, like, this is like, there is a lot of resistance to the understanding that, like, that a lot of the way that we live is informed by white supremacy and white domination. And, like, the vegan movement, or at least the mainstream movement, really has not, in my opinion, reconciled that. And what do I mean by that? Like, you know, like, we are, like, the fact that, like, our food system is historically predicated on, like, the British agricultural revolution, if you will. And, like, you know, and that revolutionized the way that, like, we farm animals. And that comes out of, like, you know, out of Western Europe. The fact that the Industrial Revolution has given us this globalized system of industrialized animal agriculture. So again, from the 1700s to the 1800s to, like, you know, to the 20th century, like, you know, like, this is, like, this is what we're looking at. Like, you know, like step by step, like, you know, we've been guided by the invisible hand of white supremacy, which shouldn't be all of that invisible, because when you look at, like, history, like, it's been there the entire way. And like when I'm talking to, like, you know, from a historical perspective, like Black and brown people, and especially Black people in the United States, like this is something that I love bringing up in the classroom. Like, you know, like our relationship to food and to certain types of animals has been informed by white supremacy in ways that we don't even think about. Our relationship to fried chicken, for example, where that's thought of as a traditionally Black food, right?
Speak on
Like
it.
that, like this is like, you know, this is something I actually wrote about this in the essay that I sent you. This is like something that is informed by directly by slavery. Why? Because like chickens were not actually considered part of real, quote, livestock during the times of slavery. In the 1700s, chickens were just relegated to the slave quarters because like they didn't even really count them in terms of like sheer inventory. So chickens became the animals that we would eat. Like the method of frying chickens, like that, like fried chicken is like something that comes from like, you know, Western Africa, or like batter frying animals, or batter frying food in general. Like, you know, that tradition or part of that tradition comes from like West Africa. And so like we carried on eating chickens in that way throughout much of slavery. When slavery was ended in 1865, there's a book. The author's name is, I believe, Psyche Forson Williams. I'm butchering her name, but the book is about like I believe it's called like Building Houses Out of Chicken Legs, where she talks about how like selling fried chicken was like pivotal to Black women in particular building wealth, because there was no other means for Black women to build wealth during that pivotal period. Wow. Like during Reconstruction after slavery. And then you have like the early 20th century and the, like, you know, the birth of like the film industry and the propaganda that comes out of that. And you've got that horrific racial propaganda film, Birth of a Nation, in which Black people, or the fear of Black people running our cities, was solidified in the white imagination by like depicting Black people as in like city or municipal buildings with their feet up on the desk, eating foods like fried chicken. And so marrying Black people to fried chicken in that way, like, you know, and like looking at this lineage for the past like 300 years, there's so much tied up in that little piece of chicken, like that's sitting on a plate. And there's so much, like, you know, so much pain, so much trauma, so much history that's wrapped up into this little cultural icon. Like, you know, and you look at like the Colonel himself, like, you know, like when Colonel Sanders started frying Kentucky Fried Chicken, and we see the images of him, like, you know, like all throughout the 1960s through the 1990s, dressed up in the, like, you know, costume of a
plantation owner.
Plantation owner. That's weird. That should be weird to us. That should be weird to us, that we're buying chicken from a man that's running a plantation, and it's not, because it's all been normalized. The, like, you know, the violence against chickens has been normalized for over 300 years. Like, you know, and so this is like, again, when I talk about like white domination and white supremacy and the lack of wanting to reckon with that or reconcile that in the mainstream movement is to our detriment. Because, like, you know, when we don't want to confront how whiteness informs our choices, how race informs our choices, it holds us back as a movement. And we want to know, don't focus on that. Let's just focus on things like, you know, like we're going to run our campaigns, go vegan and whatever have you, without ever examining, like, you know, all of the reasons why, the social, cultural, economic, and like psychological reasons why we consume animals the way that we do. I also tell people, like, you know, oh, I love bacon is something that comes out of people's faces all the time. And like in the classroom, I'm like, well, let's look at the history of bacon and why you may love it. Like, you know, like the fact that we love bacon and we have like globalized, like, you know, this love of bacon, or bacon mania as it's called, from the United States, is because of Edward Bernays, who's the father of propaganda and public relations. Like, he literally launched a campaign in the 1920s to convince people to eat a heavier breakfast, when breakfast during that time was largely vegan or vegetarian in the American household. Wow. And he revolutionized the American breakfast to make it centered on heavier foods like bacon and eggs. And that birthed in the imagination, in the American imagination, the bacon is synonymous with a true breakfast food. And then we have like a advertising campaign through propaganda that existed for several decades. And so I tell people, you do not love bacon. What you love is actually a decades-old propaganda or public relations campaign that has been animated by whiteness and white supremacy. and like, you know, and by a literal propaganda. And so like, you know, we don't have those conversations, or we're reluctant to have those conversations, because most of the mainstream movement is constructed by, or dominated, if not financially, or excuse me, if not like, you know, socially, then at least financially, by like, you know, by people who are invested in maintaining white supremacy. And that holds back our movement. That is a violence that's done, again, like, you know, like to, like, it's a violence of race because it's done to Black and brown people, but like the primary victims end up being the animals that we supposedly want to protect. And whenever I talk about this, you can look at the comment threads online when people share it over and over again. Who's this? I won't use the word, like it's the F word. Like, you know, I've been called a tranny. I'm not transgender, by the way. Like, you know, I've been called the N word. I have been called like so many things by people who supposedly are the most compassionate people on the planet. And this is documented. I actually start presentations off like by showing it to people, because I want people to be aware. This is what we're looking at. These are your comrades. This is what you, the white people who are part of this movement, need to clean up if we are going to be successful. And unless and until we do, we will not be successful. You will not liberate animals, because animal liberation is unfortunately handcuffed to Black liberation, to queer liberation, to women's liberation. And like when we don't want to reconcile these things, when we want to like hide these things, like Carol Adams talks about the absent referent, like that's the absent referent in this situation. Like, you know, and like as long as we want to continue to make whiteness absent, that is going to be like, you know, that's going to be our downfall. And likewise, I end up having the same conversation when I'm talking to like Black and brown people. I'm like, oh, you want to remove animal liberation is so, that's silly. That is a white concern to you. That's something that is completely unrelated to Black liberation.
That's not true.
Let's look at the facts.
But you know what, Christopher?
We are not going to live on a, like, we will not have Black liberation on a dead planet. We will not.
But you know what, Christopher, what I have come to the awareness is that people don't want to know the truth.
No.
And the reason why people don't want to know the truth is because you become responsible for what you know. So you would rather walk in the dark than be responsible, because then you have to deal with the guilt of what you did up until this point. And to knowingly know that you did not want to do better, I think that plays on people's psyche. And that's why there's so much pushback when it's coming to delivering us from where we are. Like, everyone is so comfortable and everyone is so excited because, yeah, we get to live here, or yeah, we get to do this. But psychologically, that's why I think the word woke is so, like, you know, intense, because people are like, you can tell the people who are awake and the people who are not. And I always like to use this reference. Like, I don't know if you saw Beyonce, and this is not vegan, but I don't know if you saw Beyonce, what is it? Love is King. Beyonce's
I don't know it. Like, I know what you're talking about, but like,
right. It was her adaptation of The Lion King. Right. So when she put that visual art out, she was talking to 3 levels of awakeness. Like, she was talking to the fans, and the fans were like, oh my God, Beyonce put out a visual. Oh my God, it's just so
visual
lit.
album from Beyonce.
Huh?
Another visual album
from
Beyonce.
Another visual. Then the second part was, oh my God, the fashion. Oh, yes, the fashion kids were living. But if you seriously look at, she was giving you messages in plain sight. And on the level of your awareness and your awokeness, you would see where she was telling you, like, get information. Everybody was like, oh, everybody get information. But she was saying, get information. Get information. That's what she was saying.
Behind like Beyonce albums is so, like, it's so over the top. It's so, like, there's so much of it out there, and so many people that like to reference like every detail of her albums.
Because now she's awake. And when she got loose from the contract, she became the blackest she's ever been. And everything she talks about, because she's wanting to show you our lives in abundance. She's wanting to show you, and I'm a beehive, but I'm not like, oh my God, I'm about to buy these tickets.
definitely you're a billionaire, Beyonce. You and Jay-Z have got to like listen, Beyonce.
Right.
This
But
is this. I'm not gonna buy those tickets.
Right. One day one day that'll be my ministry, but right now that's not my ministry. But I'm always open, and I always live for conversations that you are invoking in us, because just the information that you just gave, the people are just like, yo, where can we get more of this? Where can we get more of this? Because people are not understanding how vital it is at this time. And they also want to know the name of the book you said. Was it Building Houses of Chicken Legs?
I believe that it's building, if you type in building houses out of chicken legs and like the name Psyche, which is Psyche, it's just like the word psyche. Like you will find this book. You will find it available on Amazon. It is an amazing book. Like again, like I'm just like, like my brain has been fried right now, so I can't think of that title of it. But yeah, like she is a phenomenal author. And she's been written about several times over. Like The Economist actually wrote an article about her in this book. And like, you know, and the origins of like the iconography of like Black people in fried chicken. Or chickens in general. So
because he got us in a chokehold.
Absolutely.
He got the people in a chokehold.
Absolutely. And but like this is a really like, you know, the funny thing about it. We're blessed right now with so many like, you know, amazing, especially chefs of color, who are recreating these same flavors.
Yes.
Without like, you know, without the chickens. I'm like,
yes.
I'm going to be serving up some guests this weekend.
I want
like some delicious. Come on over. We got plenty. We're going to be serving up some food this weekend. We got some like, you know, we've got some fried chicken that's coming out. And cinnamon buns.
Yes.
I should take you to we'll go in there and take a look at what's cooking on the stove. But no, like, you know, like this is like we have so many plant-based options that are available to us, and so many people making it super accessible, showing us how to make it out of anything. And like, you know, and that's the great part about the internet. Like the internet has given us so many terrible things.
Yes.
Like it was bound to give us one or two good things every now and again. And one of those things has been like, you know, making a smaller community, or making the world small enough that we can interact with each other across distances like you and I are doing. And we have access to recipes that people are making on social media all the time. And like, you know, and like, you know, and giving us all of this knowledge, all of this creativity. And like, you know, and I'm really grateful that, like, you know, for all of the people who share it, and so many people sharing it free of charge. Pay people when you can. Like I always tell people, but pay them when you can.
Yes.
Because like, you know, I know what labor is involved in that, and like, you know, and it's hard out here for creators. So yeah, like I am grateful to them for all of the content that they produce.
So do you think that we'll ever be free?
Can I, like, am I speaking for me personally, or am I speaking like, you know, like,
I'm speaking to Christopher Sebastian, lecturer living in Prague.
I think that I think that we will, but I am talking about the general we that exists probably hundreds of years after I'm dead, if I'm honest. Okay. If I'm honest. Like, you know, I've come full circle, I feel like, in my own journey, because I started out and I'm like, oh, you know what, everything's happening, this is all pretty fine. And I think that the past like five or more years, I'll say, like right thereabouts, like, you know, I have had the realization that like nothing is okay. Nothing is okay. Like I said, our institutions are crumbling around us. We are fighting multiple, like, you know, climatological, ecological, like, you know, like economic and social emergencies all at the same time. And I had the realization, or excuse me, I started out kind of thinking that all of the hard work was done by people who came before me. The people who were part of the struggle in the 1960s, who were part of the struggle in the 1970s, who were part of the struggle in the 1980s. And they had laid the groundwork so that the rest of us could live free. And then, oh no, now transgender people are like a talking point. Now voting rights are being restricted. Votes are being suppressed. Fascism is ascendant throughout most of the global West. War throughout like the European continent. And like, you know, on top of that, the scarcity of resources is something that we are beginning to fight over in ways that we hadn't done before. And oh no, the hard work has not been done. The hard work has not been like, or the hard work, I should say, is ongoing. And I don't have the luxury of being able to sit back and reap the benefits of what people who came before me did. And I don't have the luxury of being able to say, I don't want to be a part of the struggle right now. Right. Or I would like to absent myself from the struggle. And like, you know, I forget who said it, but like whoever it was, I believe it may have been Bell Hooks, who said that, like, you know, activism is the rent that we pay to live on this planet. And like, and I really did not want to internalize that, but who? Yes, it is. And so, like, you know, you can't just sit back and like, you know, and hope that this passes us by. We all have to be politically active in the moment. Perhaps not every moment, but as often as we can in whatever way we can, because, like, you know, because fascism doesn't sleep. Racial capitalism does not sleep. It doesn't take a breath. It doesn't take a break, and it will never let you catch your breath. And so, like, you know, like maybe everybody cannot participate in exactly the way that I can. That's fine. I don't expect them to. But I expect people to participate in whatever way that they are able to, because that is the only way that we are going to be able to beat this back. And so, will we be free? Yes. The optimist in me says yes. Is it going to be tomorrow? Probably not. But that is okay. That is okay. I am present to the fact that, like, this is what we have to do right now. So I will lace up my boots and I will, like, you know, roll up my sleeves and I will get out there and do the work. Toni Morrison said, yeah, I get mad. And then I go on and work anyway. That's what we have to do.
Yeah.
Get very, very, very mad, and then stop and say, that's good. We will use this righteous anger to go out and fight the fights for everyone who does not experience the same level of privilege that we do, for everyone out there who is more minoritized or marginalized than we are in the moment. And we stand with them shoulder to shoulder in solidarity, regardless of what their species is, regardless of what your gender expression is, regardless of what race you are, regardless of your level of ability or disability. We have to stand in solidarity with those who have less than us in order to fight the forces, again, of racial capitalism and fascism, which are basically the same thing, because that is the only way that we are going to win. And, like, you know, I have said before that, like, hope is a high-risk activity.
Yeah.
But I believe that we are worth it.
Yes, indeed, Christopher. If I could sit in your class, I would be there perched.
The thing is, I don't actually even teach. I don't even teach this in university, right? Like, I work at the School of Journalism and Media Studies. So, like, you know, so I teach journalism. I teach social media. I do, like, you know, and I wish that these are the topics that I got to engage with every day. But, like, unfortunately, it's not. So it's just through conversations like this, I'm so grateful that we get to continue, like, doing this. Well,
anytime you want to have the conversation, you let me know and we can go live. Because when I say...
This is Angela Yvonne, you know what I'm mad about this week. Come get on live with me. I was like...
Yes. And I will get on and we can chat and we could giggle, we could tee-hee, we could say whatever, because this was well needed this morning. And Black History Month. It was needed because I feel that sometimes we lose focus on what we really are here to be doing. We don't take in consideration the sacrifices of other people, and we don't understand the seriousness of it all. And when you speak, you are so brilliant and you are so amazing. And I'm grateful that you even took time out to even come on here, because you touched me today. Oh. You really, truly did, because it inspired me and it motivated me, because that's the words that were coming out of your mouth are exactly how I live my life on a day-to-day basis. Like, this is serious. You know, when I show up in my spaces, I'm letting you know that I'm ready. I'm letting you know that I'm ready. And veganism
was Vaseline on.
Veganism was what is it? Theos and his rings. that's what it is for me. That's what it is for me. Yes, he is iconic. Yes, he is. But anytime you want to come on and let's have conversations, I would be totally down. And I would wake up early for you, Chris. Sebastian, I would wake up early for this.
Got you out of bed on a Saturday morning.
Yes,
we'll try to
early.
a bit later in the future.
Early, no, whenever you want to. I'm telling you, it is needed. And I enjoyed this. I really do. And I enjoy talking to everyone. But today, and especially because it's Black History Month, because, you know, we're unapologetically for these 28 days, even though it used to be a week. But I just want to tell you thank you, and your gift is so needed, and you need to be on a circuit somewhere. Just tell them, just come through and let me give you the business. Oh. Let me give you the business.
I appreciate that. I really, really do. But like, no, it's because, like, you know, it's because people like you invite me to talk about these things. And like, you know, and I'm sincerely grateful. I'm grateful for all the people who are here with us today that are participating in this live with us. I haven't had a chance to read the comments because I'm so easily distracted. But like, you know, I see the hearts from people, and I really, really appreciate them as much as I appreciate you.
Yes.
So thank you.
And that's what this conversation is what, and one of the reasons why I did VeganPopEats, because you don't see us. Because no. right now, the most popular Black vegan right now is Tabitha. And I love her, but there is just so many others that have the same kind of message, but
oh my goodness,
doesn't speak to you in a way that you can digest. So if she's the leader, I'm accepting of it. You know what I'm saying? Because she is opening up the doors for all of us to be able to come in and speak about it, because veganism is predominantly white. And now we're starting to get it. But as I'm doing different research for Black history, there were a lot of Black vegans.
There was so, and that's the thing. Like, the presentation doesn't match up with the reality.
Right.
Like, the presentation of this as like something that has been, like, you know, historically and is currently something that is primarily white has been absolutely, like, that's so, like, it's mind-boggling. And then you look back at the reality of it, and I'm like, you know, and now that I see the prevalence of Black people who are vegan, who are like eating a plant-based diet, who are, like, you know, following a different lifestyle that is, like, shall we say, non-conforming to, like, you know, to the expectations of like a white supremacist society, now I can't unsee it. Yeah. Like, you know, like, and like, now that, like, I think that it was in the Washington Post that I read it in 2020, like, you know, Black people are like more than twice as likely to be vegan in the United States than white people. And I'm like, word? Is that so? And then, like, you know, when I switched up and started, like, you know, I said, I'm going to be proactive in my own social media circles. And now I see so many Black and brown faces in my news feed or in my, like, you know, in my social media feed who are preparing plant-based foods, who are talking about, like, you know, the relationships between like white supremacy and animal violence and animal exploitation. And I'm like, this is, like, you know, this feels good for me. This feels safe for me. Like, you know, like seeing you popping up, seeing Soul Eubanks, like EA Loves Life. She's another one. She's super fun. So sweet. Like, you know, like looking at like Vigilante Vegan, like these are the accounts on Instagram that, like, you know, that show up most frequently for me. And I'm like, this being able to see myself reflected is,
yes,
so it's very, very healing for me. It's so healing for me. And I'm so grateful to all of these other people who are giving out this message. And again, it's Black History Month. It's Black History. I'm throwing, this is my imaginary confetti. I'm throwing confetti. Like, it's Black History Month, y'all. And so, yeah, like, so being able to be unapologetic and like, you know, in celebrating our Blackness, like, for these 28 days, I'll absolutely take it. I'll absolutely take it. Y'all are going to be so sick of me. Y'all are going to be sick of me.
Sick of me. Sick of me. Well, Christopher, I won't hold you any longer. I thank you so much. Thank you. And if you have any books that you would recommend for me to get a little bit more knowledge of the things that you have spoke about, because like I told you, you just gave me a new word, and I think I'm gonna rock it out for a while. But
let me see here.
Or you can just, if you want, you can just send it to me, DM it to me.
No, I'm gonna tell everybody. There is
Okay.
a book that I just ordered and I can't wait to get it.
I'm writing it down.
I'm finding it right now.
So is Prague your permanent, or are you gonna move around?
Semi-permanent. Like, you know, like I still come back to the States. Like I'm a back and forth type of person. Like I'm around the way girl. So like yeah, no, but yeah, like traveling back and forth to the US is what I commonly do. And again, like it's just because like my like the university schedule and my work schedule, like they marry up in such a way that this is something that's doable for me.
Wow.
And like, you know, and it's something that like, you know, that I enjoy. It's hard for me to leave behind everyone altogether and say that I'm not coming back. Because not just because like, you know, so much of my culture and myself is wrapped up in like, you know, in US identity, but also because I'm like, this is the cauldron right here, if you will. And if you are going to dismantle this hierarchy, this violence, I can't be absent from it.
Right.
Like you know, like American imperialism is such a toxic pill. You're not safe anywhere on this planet from it. And so I do feel this psychological need to go back there to be part of the struggle, if you will. But this is the book that I wanted to recommend to you.
Okay.
It's called Being Property Once Myself by Joshua Bennett.
Being Property?
Being Property Once Myself. And this is like, I will tell you like the description from Harvard. For much of American history, Black people have been conceived and legally defined as non-persons, a subgenre of the human. In Being Property Once Myself, prize-winning poet Joshua Bennett shows that Blackness has long acted as the caesura between human and non-human, and delves into the literary imagination and ethical concerns that have emerged from this experience. Each chapter tracks a specific animal: the rat, the cock, the mule, the dog, the shark. In the works of Richard Wright, Toni Morrison, Zora Neale Hurston, Jessamine Ward, and Robert Hayden, the plantation, the wilderness, the kitchenette, overrun with pests, the valuation and sale of animals, and enslaved people, all Black and animal life in fraught proximity. Get it tomorrow.
Get it tomorrow.
Get it.
Have you read Cast?
I have not read Cast. I have not read Cast. Now who's making the book recommends?
I need you to get it.
The other one that I'll recommend is from Benedicta Boisson. I may be mispronouncing her name. It's called Afro Dog. It is a remarkable Afro Dog.
Afro
like
and Dog.
Afro and Dog. And Benedicta Boisson, her last name I believe is spelled Boisson. Let me see. Let me see if I can save that. Boisseron. Boisseron. B like boy, Oisseron. So French surname. And the book is Afro Dog, Blackness and the Animal Question. Those are the books that I will recommend. And I'll leave everyone with those.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like this is why, like I tell people, like, listen, I am not even the most childhood. If y'all are relying on me, I got nothing for you. I'm not even the most articulated person on this topic. There are so many authors out there. Y'all don't even know what you're missing. In your in your Black liberation libraries, in your animal liberation libraries, and and especially in the animal liberation libraries. I'm like, why are we missing these? Why are we not why are we not we're reading the same books that have been around for ages? We got people that are reading Skinny Bitch and not reading this.
They don't know nothing about up, skinny bitch.
But I cannot. So yeah, no, I am humbled by the by the bodies of work that are out there, and and just drawing inspiration from from the things that people have produced. And so those are the recommendations that I have.
Okay, I got it. Thank you, Chris, for so much. Thank you, Sebastian, because I saw one of your lecture. You were like, "Call me Sebastian." I was just like, "Oh, okay."
Just Sebastian. I'm trying to one name out like Beyonce does.
She said, "Asco's racism as zoological witchcraft."
I have heard of it. I haven't read it.
Okay. I have to write that down because I love knowledge. Okay. All right. And I keep saying it, and we be here all night getting snacks.
Thank you to everybody.
Thank you so much.
Here. I love it. Like people are calling out Beyonce for being a billionaire. Look, the tickets. Look, the ticket. So many of these concerts.
She could have gave this out pro bono.
Oh man, vegan Soulicious. Oh, we need this live every Saturday morning. Look, don't get me started. I'll come back every Saturday. We'll be here with a bowl of cereal.
Well, what you want to do? You just gotta let me know what the tea is. What's going on?
You have so many people to interview, though. I'm looking forward to watching the rest of the series.
Yes.
So if you all are not following VeganPopEats, please make sure that you're doing that. This has been a gift. Thank you so much for having me here.
And I'm gonna hit you up another Saturday. I'm gonna be like, Christopher, what you doing?
I'm just sitting here with my cinnamon rolls. Also,
thank you
just
so much for your gift.
Can you please give it up for your lipstick shade? Because
yes, this is Boy Trouble, the lip bar, and it is vegan. Black owned.
That is absolutely stunning on.
Thank you.
Please give it up, everybody, for how gorgeous you are on a Saturday, because I could not get enough. I said, I
gotta show up for Christopher just in case he reads me.
We were not gonna do that. But no, I said to myself, I did, this is what she came correct on a Saturday morning. For me, I'm like, no, we are definitely gonna mention this color.
Yes, because you worth it. You fed my soul this morning. I don't even need breakfast. You fed my soul. But I'm gonna let you go. And thank y'all for everyone who came on. Yes. Give it up for Mr. Christopher Sebastian. And if you don't know, now you know. Please follow him. Please research him. It will feed your soul. See y'all later.